Okay, I'm kind of embarrassed that I've literally never thought of this before. Dragons. Dragons are a single, massively polymorphic, epigenetically diverse, and adaptive ambient manner absorbing species. How did I never think of that? Yeah, I also think it's very embarrassing that you've never thought of that from over here on this slightly different camera angle. What the fuck did you just say? So I've previously made videos about like there's a thing you can find on like DeviantArt about like the different kinds of dragons. Like recently in media and stuff like that, talking about dragons, they've been like, technically that's not a dragon, that's a wyvern, and I've been like, shut up. Genuinely, that's like actually offensive to a staggering amount of people, actually. So the dragon that you probably just pictured when I said dragon, that hasn't been around for that long, whatever it is that you just thought of. The current like D&D-esque, like big four-legged, two-winged dragon, very Ydraig gauche kind of Welsh dragon sort of a thing. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing things right. And while that like idea of a fantasy fire-breathing dragon these days is like quite close to the like heraldic Ydraig gauche Welsh dragon, other than the heraldic, which is like a shorthand in the first place, old Draghi in the majority of depictions was a lot more serpentine, and there's a good reason for that. It's because dragons are snakes. Like dragons are just literally snakes. The etymology for the majority of words that ended up being what we now refer to as like general dragony, they all just mean serpent in their various languages, like the Gavir or Wyvern or whatever they are, and then Draco and stuff like that. All kind of leads back to various origins of just like, oh, that's a serpent. Either literally meaning like snake in whatever the language of origin is, or like serpenty. The fire breathing, again, is also very recent, actually. It was either like spitting acid or poison because they're snakes. What I'm trying to express here is that like the kind of like liony sort of a posture, sort of like upright, four-legged, two wings, elemental associated dragon is both very recent and has influences from everywhere. Like from so many places like Europe and the Middle East and Asia. Interestingly, like a lot of these influences lead all the way back to ultimately kind of just being, oh, there was a big monstrous snake. Like a lot of these feel like a lot like it's just like, oh, that was a terrible, like if someone didn't know what a snake was and they were describing to someone to draw, it's like, oh, and it bit and oh, it burned and my leg fell off. And then it's, oh no, it didn't have legs. You've already drawing the legs. You can stop drawing the legs. No. It's fine with just two. I mean, I prefer none, but just two. Give it like 8 legs. I don't give a fuck. And that's how that happened. Then there's like lion and tiger influences, particularly from Asia and stuff like that. The dragon is kind of like English, like the language English. People are just like, oh, it's like a composite language. It's kind of like a bucket, though. English is just kind of like a bucket where we took like a bunch of other languages and words and conventions, just went, fucking throw that shit in there. Like the standard that we're now like, oh, that's a dragon, which is like kind of close to the Welsh dragon. That's so many different influences and stuff like that. And also, again, hasn't been around that long. Ydraig's been around for like a while, but like the thing that we now think of as a dragon has not. And then being like, that's not a dragon, that's the wyvern and stuff like that. I want to be clear. That's like, and I know no one cares, but like, that's like offensive to a staggering number of people, to like an impressive amount of people. I didn't realize that because like that's important. It is important to a lot of mythologies and like symbolism and spiritualism to all of these different kinds of areas, and you've just been like, no, that's not a dragon. It's like short of like a robot being like, nah, humanity's all a bunch of filthy meatbags, which, yeah, honestly, it's impressive like how many people that's simultaneously kind of rude to. So if you see those sort of like charts, there's just like, this one's a dragon, this one's a wyvern, it should really be saying snake. 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 But, you know, if you're writing a kind of a fantasy setting and there are lots of different kinds of dragons, then having that kind of a distinction does help. But you don't really get to be like, actually, is what I was going to say. Until now. So a polymorphic species is a species that has, for a number of reasons, a lot of different, bioforms. You can think of these as like genders or like an adult form or a baby form. But in things like some form with ants, you have like leafcutters, for example, have a lot of very, very different kinds of like warriors and soldiers and workers and queens and so on. And this is like further complicated by like maybe some of these are haploid and some of these are diploid and so on. It's complicated. One of the main points here is that human life cycles are really simple. You could say that like the majority perhaps of life forms that you'd probably think of have relatively simple kind of life cycles. A lot of them have really, really complicated ones, and things like salamanders and axolotls. Axolotls will remain in their kind of like weird, squishy with their gills out here and so on, until, for example, it gets a bit too dry, and then they'll metamorphosize into salamanders. And but the axolotl isn't a baby salamander. They can be, sexually mature and reproduce. It's more that like an axolotl's kind of got salamander in the back pocket if it needs to. I had to make dinner, so now I'm in my room. So let's take these ideas of like, polymorphic species and, different epigenetic kind of life stages, for example. And let's say that instead of dragons being perhaps different kinds of dragons being, say, different species within the same family or something like that, they're all the same species. Elementally, they're able to adapt to like the ambient mana or magic or whatever in a particular area, and by their body form, they're able to adapt to what is most used for locomotion. If they're living like deep within tunnels of a volcano in sort of like the magma chutes and stuff like that, then maybe something like a lindworm with like 2 front legs or no legs or something like that would be most beneficial to them. I would say like if you had 4 legs and 2 wings, you're probably spending more time on the ground and less time flying. Wyvern, you're just doing more flying. Maybe you live somewhere higher up. I don't know. Think about it. Look. What I like most about this is I really like the idea that there actually aren't that many places that can support a dragon as far as, the amount of elemental magic in a particular area to support them. And I like this because of the idea of like, if a bigger, stronger dragon comes along and like usurps their position, then as they have to leave, as they no longer have the same amount of like magical energy to support them, they gradually start to both lose their element and maybe even change their bioform slowly, but also feel like they're losing a bit of their identity. Quite a lot of their identity, probably. Like, I just got kicked out of home, and am I even a fire dragon anymore? Am I still Keith? Like, based on the kind of things they're hunting and so on, their body adapts to whatever it is that they need to be. So you get the more liony ones over here and the more serpenty ones over there. So the question of just like, well, why do dragons look so different in different places? It's literally just what they do. And then you can add in things like maybe if a dragon egg is brought to a place of particular magical focus, it will take on the element that it is exposed to. Maybe if it's not exposed to any particular element at all, maybe it just comes out not a normal snake. Not a normal snake. Like maybe they're just snakes. Not they're just snakes, but maybe they have like a more like less differentiated low mana exposure form that can differentiate into other kinds of bioforms and elements if it has access to them. Do we want to add in haploid dragons? Do we? Do we want to have like only the queen dragons, effectively like the diploid? They're the only ones that can actually like reproduce, and that things like maybe the haploids are like wyverns and things like that, and they can't absorb nearly as much mana, and you could work with that. So yeah, so like maybe a dragon could like move to a different place and could gradually change its element, but it would leave itself very vulnerable if it tried to do so. That's probably not very common. I really like that, actually. I'm not going to use it because I've already thought of better stuff, but I like that. Someone else can use that. Go on. The snake and the snake. That big one with all the legs. Snake.